Hi, this is Dr. Katie McKnight, and I'd love to share with you about a session on developing reading and literacy skills in an e-learning context. As all of us nationwide are now teaching our children in an e-learning context, there are still some things that we do, whether it's in an e-learning environment or a traditional classroom, that leads to keen and development of reading and literacy skills. About 8 years ago, Dr. Richard Allington published a wonderful meta-analysis titled Every Child, Every Day. And in his meta-analysis and in his article, he identified 6 components to outstanding literacy instruction. And those 6 components are just as essential as if the kids were in a traditional classroom as an e-learning environment. So as we are working in e-learning environments and teaching our kids in e-learning environments, we have to remember those 6 basic principles. And what do they look like now in an e-learning context? So those 6 principles, like every child listens to a fluent adult read aloud, kids need models for how adults read about text, read text, and then also how they think about text. So for little kids, there's wonderful online tools and platforms that we can use, like Storytime Online, which has famous people reading stories. So that's a great example of a read aloud, but also think alouds. Kids in the older grades need to see how we as experts in different subject areas like science, social studies, mathematics, how we think about text. And then the next component that Ted identified is that every child reads something he or she chooses. You know, it's really interesting because there is a significant body of research that shows that when kids read, anyone who reads an hour a day, and it doesn't have to be an hour straight, it could be 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, what happens is then students will score in the 98th percentile on student achievement assessments. And how do you get kids to read more? You give them choice. But there are some things that we need to consider when we're giving choice to kids, and you can make that happen too in an e-learning environment. Every child talks with peers about reading and writing. The research is pretty substantial that when kids talk about their reading and writing, or whoever's talking in a classroom, those are the ones who are actually learning. There's a depth there that happens. And how do you make that happen in an e-learning environment? Thinking of lots of different tools that we can use, like online conferencing, Flipgrid, and how can we leverage those in order to meet that principle. And then the fourth one is that every child writes about something personally meaningful. And again, giving kids choice, something that they're interested in order to write, are keen ways to develop those writing skills. There are so many amazing writing platforms that we have in an e-learning environment, and I can't wait to share some of those with you and how we can promote writing in an e-learning environment. Every child reads accurately. Now, for younger kids, that is more on the letter level, so that's phonics, phonemic awareness. And then with older kids, it really gets into the vocabulary. So when we start getting into disciplinary specific vocabulary. So what kinds of tools and platforms can we use, and how can we construct that in an e-learning environment? There's, again, some amazing things that we can use, like Spelling City. There's lots of phonics kinds of games and tools and protocols that you can use that are in an e-learning environment, and then also developing vocabulary. So I can't wait to share that with you too. And then every child reads something he or she understands. So differentiating our reading also leads to greater literacy achievement. So again, how could I, for instance, as a middle school U.S. history teacher, make sure that kids are reading texts that they understand and that they also have choice? The interesting thing about that is that when kids read, when they choose their text, they generally pick what they can handle. They generally pick what they can understand. So let's say that I have a PDF folder in an e-learning platform like Canvas or Schoology or Google Classroom, it doesn't matter, but I have a collection of texts in a folder, and the kids can choose, for instance, in a U.S. history class, what primary source documents that they're going to look at, and they can group just like they would in a traditional classroom based on their choice, and then be able to have those rich discussions and go through the protocols to really analyze that primary source document. I fully understand the challenges that we have as educators in our e-learning environment at this time. But really, the basic tenets of literacy instruction are always applicable in an e-learning environment. And I can't wait to share with you and show you how you can do this and really maximize your instruction to promote those literacy skills that prepare kids for life.